Bakit ito lang? Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this very special edition of Drive Time with Matty Ice. I'm here with everybody, and of course, live in person. I actually have Showtime Sarah here with me instead of from her screen in North Carolina. And then, of course, Big Vic is back with us. Welcome back, Big Vic. How you doing, buddy?
Doing all right. How's everybody?
No complaints here. Then, of course, the one and only Scooter Rivette is here with us too. How's the Scooter man doing?
Hanging out down in Florida right now, feeling all the love of the Panthers down here. I'm here an extra day. Got my flight canceled, but I'll be back up in Wilmington tomorrow.
Very nice. Now, Scott, this is a very special treat for you. I got this from my daughter at one of the Canes things, and hopefully it will show up okay. I don't know if you can see it. Do you see what the Zamboni is?
I see Whaler logos.
It is. It is a Hartford Whaler popcorn Zamboni.
Oh.
That so when they did the Whaler night this year, they actually busted out the popcorn Zamboni and they did it in the Whalers. And I said, yes, please, I want that. So I wanted to share that with you, just for you to see.
Nice. Nice. They used to put Pucky on the Zamboni with the Zamboni driver at the Hartford Civic Center.
Yes. Well, you know that we do love a good Pucky story. So he's one of the better mascots, underrated. So, all right, we got a lot to get to, guys. So real quick, I do want to bring this up here before we get into the hockey stuff. We do want to say our shout outs to Dave Parker and Dwayne Lucas. Unfortunately, both just recently passed away. Dave Parker was 71? My math's right? No, my math's off. 76. Unfortunately had Parkinson's, the Cobra, one of my favorite baseball players of the older age from We Are Family. So definitely miss him for sure. That one's a tough one from back in the day. And then a tough one for the horse racing fans out there too. And Scott, I'll definitely let you touch on this one, I'm sure. Dwayne Lucas also passed away, which you think of a Kentucky Derby horse winner, you normally think of him there watching it. So any thoughts on any of the two guys?
Go ahead, Scooter.
Okay, well, I think losing Dave Parker, that was a big deal. I mean, all of us who were kids in the '80s, we remember Dave Parker and him and Willie Stargell and all those. Like I was alive, but I wasn't very old to know when they were that great. But when you're growing up following baseball as a kid, you knew who they were. And so seeing another guy like that, what was he? He was always bopping home runs out of there. That's what you hear. Dave Parker bopping home runs.
74. That's the correct math. I could not do in my head there quickly for Dave Parker. I remember him too from the A's days because he was in the World Series with the A's in San Francisco when you had the earthquake that broke it up. Unfortunately, I always remember watching that one live, and all of a sudden you see everything start swaying and moving, and the Bay Bridge is collapsing, and that was scary.
I did see a 30 for 30 on that. So that was. Was it 30 for 30 they did on that Bay Bridge or earthquake at the ballpark there or something?
Yeah, I think they did do one on that for sure. That sounds like an ESPN 30 for 30 would be for sure. And then, of course, Dwayne Lucas was 90. Like I said, just Mr. Horse Racing as far as the training horses go, and all the different ones that he had that won Kentucky Derby. So was he at the Kentucky Derby this year? I don't remember if I saw him.
I can't recall. I know down here where I am right now is in Wellington, Florida, and they have the International Polo Grounds and the International Equestrian Center here. I actually saw Bruce Springsteen's daughter a few years ago do equestrian here. Had no idea it was her until they were like, "Oh, from New Jersey, so and so Springsteen." I'm like, "Wait a minute. I think she was in the Olympics, and that's her." But it's they feel it down here specifically. It's like it's horse country of Florida down here.
Right. Yep. So a couple rest in peace to get us started, unfortunately, for today. But we all know what we're here for. This is the free agency special, so we'll get right into some of the stuff. Of course, the AHL, I've been covering these, so Canada does win actually a couple championships this year. They sweep the minor leagues. They win the AHL and of course the East Coast Hockey League. The Abbotsford Canucks did end up winning the Calder Cup in 6 games over the Charlotte Checkers. So the Vancouver Canucks farm team, and then of course we've already talked about the Trace Rivers winning the ECHL to death. So the AHL sweep the Canadians at least sweep the minor leagues hockey for championships. So they got that to look forward to.
Hey, it's Canada Day, so
that's right, it is. And it's also
and they'll
Bobby
always have
Bonilla
the Canadian Football League. They'll always win up there with the CFL.
And it's Bobby Bonilla Day too. So you always got that to look forward to today. I'm trying to put up.
Doesn't that end soon? I think like within a year or two.
Yeah,
No,
I think in a few years it finally does.
I thought it was 2035. He still gets paid.
Could be.
I think it's like 10 more years that he still gets paid. It's crazy.
I mean, there were a lot of guys that got those contracts. Like what was it? Who was it? Griffey Jr. He was getting paid by the Reds up up to last year. Dude hasn't played in like 18 years or something.
Yep, it sure was. Yeah, I mean it's just crazy. So who knows? We'll see how. I think though it is 35 if I remember correctly. But speaking of deals, we do have a new labor deal, which is good for the NHL and NHLPA. They are good through 2030 now. That's always good to see. The season after this year is going to go from 82 to 84 regular season games. And the preseason games go down to 4. There will be another roster spot, but it won't count against the cap because the e-bugs will officially be gone. Each team will be allowed to carry a third goalie that will basically be their secondary backup. So they'll travel with the team. It's going to be another roster spot. They'll get paid. So that's good for these guys. So you're going to see a lot of these 34, 35-year-old goalies that will probably be in these type of spots, I'm sure, for sure. But it does mean the end of the e-bug, which is kind of sad.
They were fun. You guys had it in Carolina that one game.
Yes, we did. The good old, and of course now then it turned out to be a slime ball, so then it's not quite as good anymore. So, but anyway, it's that's the death of the e-bug is an unfortunate thing. The other thing too, they are going to finally fix is the LTIR situation. So these players that have been on long-term injured reserve, that then they can spend the money in the cap. They can still have all these players on the roster, but the roster that goes into the playoffs actually still has to now be under the cap. So it kind of gets rid of this thing that some of these teams have used over the last couple of years when a player gets injured to bring in another high money guy. They can still do that, but they're going to have to make some tough roster choices because now the roster has to be under the cap in the playoffs, which I think is a good move to kind of finally close that loophole.
You got that right.
Anyone else got anything up for that one?
I think go ahead, Scott.
Nope, you got it.
I think the preseason going on the fourth is kind of interesting, as that takes away from like the young guys getting chances to make an impression. That's how Blake got onto the Canes roster last year.
Yeah, I agree. That could be interesting. I mean, look, I think I don't know if we need to go to 84 games, but of course, they want the money. But I'm all for less preseason games because, especially the NHL's gotten kind of similar to the NFL now, where
it's like
you're
7
seeing,
or 8 games, something like
yeah,
that. I could see 5 or 6, but 4, I don't know.
You're seeing less and less of the big guys play in these preseason games anyway. They get more, I think, out of their practices and stuff too. So I don't know. I'm okay with it, but of course, 84 games means more money for these teams, and that's only going to help bring up everything else that they got going on. So good.
Yeah, I don't like any of when they keep it like the NFL. They did it now. I mean, hockey and other. It's like, oh well, it's less preseason games. It's like well, the NFL is ridiculous. With the whole concussions, we care so much. The best way to save the players from concussion issues is to add more games. I mean, come on. And then 82 to 84. I mean, they're already playing. The Florida Panther. Imagine the Florida Panther. I mean, there are teams that go like 6, 7 games per series to get to the Stanley Cup. I mean, how many games these guys have to play that actually matter? I mean, if these leagues did it right, they would just basically make it free to go to preseason games.
Right. Well, and that's like when we used to have the Canes season tickets, it was that you had to buy the tickets, but we never
Right.
we ate that cost into the cost of the other games when we divvied them
Mhm.
out, and then whoever got them. But yeah, the fact that they make you pay for, although the Canes always do what they do, one freebie a year, don't they? Still, do they still do the one freebie a
I
year?
think so.
Well, now that they go down to only having 2 home preseason games, and they might not do the freebie anymore, but they usually did one game where it was you got on blind and you got the tickets and they were free. It was a donation game or something like that, which, a smart way to get people in the building for a
Yeah,
preseason
absolutely,
game.
100%.
So, but yeah, so congrats to them. We're good through 2030, so we don't have to worry about that next year, which is good because there was some talk that might be an issue. The Dallas Stars did finally hire a head coach, so everyone has a head coach. They're bringing back Glenn. I'm sure Gulletson, I think was his name. Funny little part with him is he was the head coach when Jim Nill, who is their GM, first came on board back in 2013, and the first thing he did was fire him. But now he is back. He hasn't been no head coach has lasted 3 years under Nill, which I think is interesting. He was the last head coach for Calgary in 2016-18, had 1 playoff appearance, got swept in that round. Then he's been an assistant for Edmonton, but not really much. So it's a hire. So now all the teams have a head coach again, but I don't know. I don't really have much feeling for Glenn, good or bad, other
Well,
than
maybe maybe the Stars, when they lose in the conference finals again next year, maybe they'll get another general manager of the year award.
Right. Yeah, and yet somehow Zito has not won a single general manager of the year award, which is ridiculous with what he's done. And we'll get into what he's done with Florida when we get into the moves and stuff like that. So, but they do have their head coach. Vic, you got anything on the head coach?
I think it's a step backwards, and I think most Dallas Stars fans probably agree.
Yep, probably. I think you're right.
The ones I've seen, at least.
Sarah is. I told her job while we're on is she is to check all the things here. All right, so it's well, we'll get to this. They're still working on the trade for Miller. It does not say they're still working on that. That's all it says. Nothing big. I thought maybe that the Miller deal was officially done, but it's not done yet. So anyway, so we'll keep on moving along while we see this thing gets finalized while we're on live or not. But the NHL draft was last Thursday. Well, Friday night was the round 1, and then 2 through 7. So this was what we did last week. It was Scooter and I on. We did kind of do a little preview, and so I put a little star by the ones I got right. And you know what? I'll say this for through the first 10 rounds, I got 6 of the 10 right. And I think that's pretty darn good, especially with how up in the air this draft was. Getting 6 out of 10 right. And even the 3 that we got wrong, they were kind of like all right there. And I had said, like picks 2 through 8, you probably could flip a coin and be right with any one of them. But overall, I think the top 10 went pretty much as we thought it was going to go. I think the only real surprise for me was Philly not taking Higgins. I thought that would have been a really good fit for them. Instead, they let Boston get him, which I think is interesting too. Did you guys any thoughts on anyone of where they went for the first 10 picks?
That's pretty good. The 6 out of 10, because I thought it was a pretty weird first 10 picks. So.
Yeah, I was happy with that. Now after that, it goes downhill quickly. But there were a lot of trades, teams went down,
Yeah.
so it was hard to get right after that. 11 through 12, 12. Philadelphia moved up to take Jack Nesbitt, which I actually had Philly taking him at 22. So to me, that still counts because the player went to the team. It just ended up being a little bit earlier. Carter Bear, I got right too with Detroit, and then we had some movement around Columbus. I had Jackson Smith went to the Rangers, but I had him going to Columbus later, but the Rangers had moved up and took him, had a few more of those guys. Of course, the big thing of this was the Islanders traded away, which we'll get into one of their trades later. So they end up with these 3 picks. They end up with 1, 16, and 17. So the Islanders definitely probably had the best of the draft just as far as being able to get that. They add Eklund, and then they also add Atchison at D, which I really like that pick for them. And it's unfortunate that meant that Justin Carbonneau did not get to go to Montreal. He went to St. Louis instead. But I think that's also a good move for them. And then the first goalie won at 20, which is another Piotr. This one is Andreanov for Columbus, actually. The interesting thing for him is he's locked up in the KHL for 3 years. So Columbus isn't going to even have a chance to see him for a little bit, but we'll see how that goes down. Don Waddell did take another Piotr before when he was the GM for Carolina, of course, with Kochekov. That's one of the 2 starters for Carolina now. Anything from 11 through 20 you guys want to hit on?
Not so much the goalie. That's reminiscent of when the Caps took in 2015. Why am I egging on his name right now? But
Opie?
the
Is
Rush.
that no, no, oh, not Russian. Oh, I know, because now then he went Igor, right? Then he went to
Now,
Toronto, right? Samsonov?
Samsonov, yes, Samsonov. When he got drafted by him, I mean, he didn't come in for 3 years because he was in the KHL. Of course, they drafted him at like 18, but
Right.
a few years later, then finally he came into the league. So that sounds about typical for a goalie in the KHL that age.
Yep.
He should be
And
pretty
then
good, that guy.
21 through 32, really no surprises here. There was a lot of movement that went through. For Washington, they drafted Lyndon Lakovic, a center. I had him actually going up at 14, so I actually do think that's a pretty good pick for Washington, the fact that they got him that late in the draft. No surprise to any Carolina fan. Carolina traded out of the first round. They've had this pick within that 20 to 32 range the last, 3 or 4 years. And I think we have traded out of that. But that's how they gained the draft capital. And everyone's like, well, how does this team that's so good end up with draft capital? Because like in this year's draft, we traded out of the first round, go in the second round. Then they traded that pick for 2 more picks. We went from having 1 pick in the first round and no pick in the second round to 3 second-round picks this year. So that's how Carolina does it. And it's worked out pretty well for them to still keep a good farm team and be, contending at the same time, which you don't see a lot of teams be able to pull that off. So it works for them. I think the biggest one I like here that I think is going to be interesting is the other goalie that went Ravensburgen to San Jose. Because look, San Jose does not have a lot of goaltending talent. So I think he's got a shot to maybe be a surprise to actually get into the league this year if he wants to. I think he's going to go to college, but that team has such a need for goaltending that who knows how quickly we could see him in an NHL uniform, especially for San Jose.
Do you know what college does Ravenbergen go to?
I don't have it right. Oh wait, hold on. I might have him. Let me see here if I have where he committed to on my little.
I mean, a lot of the time with where they're going to, if it's a big time school, I mean, they're there 3-4 years.
Yeah, I did not write down where he's talking about going.
That's okay.
Yeah. But we'll see what he does. And then the other one I liked was Colin Potter, because I actually thought that'd be a good pick if Carolina did keep the pick. He goes to Calgary because they actually moved back into the first round to get him. So I think that's a good move for Calgary too, as far as that goes with the draft. So there's our first round of the draft, just as far as the picks and stuff like that and who everyone went where. So now we got a lot of trades to get through that happened. These were the trades that we covered last show. No need to hit on them again. I just wanted to throw them back up on a slide just to remind everyone of what went down the week before. And then this week, it's just been, since we last met, the first big trade was Evander Kane went from Edmonton to Vancouver. That was just for a 4th-round pick. Clearly, salary dump by Edmonton for some of the moves that they had to make with the signing a couple of their restricted free agents that they had. I don't honestly get the move for Vancouver. I don't know why you bring him in. He's been nothing but a cancer anywhere he's gone, but we'll see. Maybe it works out for Vancouver, with some of the other stuff they've been able to do. But it's an interesting trade for sure. Any Evander Kane hate out there that anyone else wants to throw around?
I'll let you go for that. I agree with everything you said, so you're good.
The drama between him and his ex-wife was posting like a bunch of stuff of like, oh yeah, now Edmonton can win a cup. It was really funny.
Yes, that was terrible. All right, and then this one's kind of a smaller one, but I thought it was interesting too because Buffalo traded JJ Pachuca to Utah for Michael Kesselring and Josh Doan. And everyone knows where Utah came from was Arizona. Shane Doan was a big part of that franchise. His kid is Josh Doan. Utah trades him away. I kind of feel like it's really totally now the official end of the Arizona Coyotes the new beginning of the Utah Mammoth, because the team has really cut their ties away from anything dealing with Arizona officially now with trading away the kid. Not much really here as far as players go. Hesseling is a second pair D, played in 82 games, had 29 points. Doan only played in 51 games, gives him a little bit of size, but I think Utah gets the way better player on this one. He gets 68 points in 77 games for Buffalo. He was a restricted free agent. They immediately signed him to a 5-year, $7.7 million a year. So definitely gives Utah some more scoring and gives yet another reason to wonder what the hell Buffalo is doing again.
Utah seems to be making some moves. So they're a team to just keep an eye on next year.
Yep. Agree with that 100%. This one's an interesting trade. Columbus traded goalie Daniel Tarasov to Florida for a 5th-round pick. He's a restricted free agent. They still have not officially signed him yet. We'll get into that. He wasn't necessarily great with Columbus, but Bill Zito did draft him. And Columbus has their young goalie Jet Greaves, who's going to be probably indefinitely with Columbus next year, along with Elvis. So Tarasov was now available. 7-10-2 with a 3.54 and an 88 save percentage. So not great, but Zito seemed to like him. He drafted him, and they need somebody to back up Bob and on the cheap. And this seems like that type of a move. They get him on the cheap.
We got a
100%.
trade.
We have a trade. We have a goalie trade. Remember we just talked about San Jose needing goalies, right? They have traded with San Jose. So Pittsburgh trades away Alex Nedeljkovic, who was an ex-Carolina Hurricane goalie. He's been kind of their backup goaltender behind what's his name, Yuri and the other guy now that they just got, and I keep drawing the blanks, for a 3rd-round pick. So Alex goes to San Jose, where he could be the starter for a 3rd-round pick. So there's breaking news there of the trade between Pittsburgh and San Jose. So we just talked about San Jose needing a goalie,
And there they got.
and there you go. That they at least have a goalie, whether it's the goalie or not, we don't know. A little minor deal for the Caps I did want to mention, because I know we got a lot of Caps fans out there. They also made a move with Florida. They got one of their other restricted free agents, Justin Sordiff from Florida, for a 2nd and 26 and a 6th in 2027. I'm pulling up my notes here on him.
They almost immediately signed sort of also.
Yeah, they did. They signed him to the deal because he was a restricted free agent. He's only 23. He did play in Charlotte for most of last year. 34 points in 43 games, was 3rd in scoring for the playoff run. I think he could be a fill-in for a couple of these other guys that they seem to be likely to lose. So I think he'll get a shot in Washington. We'll see, how it plays out. He's 23, so he's young, and he did have a decent year. And he went to a cup final in the AHL this year. So
they also need to replenish Hershey a little bit too, so that'll help with that.
Yeah, I'll be honest, I don't like giving up a 2nd-round pick for him. I think it's a heavy price tag for a kid that really hasn't played much in the NHL. So they got to be thinking highly of him if they're moving that much that much draft capital.
Yeah, the way I see that too is like 2nd-round picks in the NHL. You're talking about a guy that's 3-4 years away from actually. Maybe never getting into the NHL. And here's a guy who's already, I know he's only played like 4 to 6 games in the NHL, but he has been in the NHL. And as you're saying, 23 years old, that's a really good young player to look at. That already is kind of solidified. So you're not like taking he was really good in, the Swedish Elite League. Yeah, okay. Well, see if it transfers. At least sort of transfers over. That transfers to the NHL, and he could come up and actually compete for a position, which I think he will.
Agree. Yeah, I don't hate it. I think the Caps needed to get some more folks into the mix, especially because it looks like they're going to lose a few. So I think it's a good cheap move. And then we got to some of the bigger ones. Columbus gets Charlie Coyle and Miles Wood from Colorado. This was also for picks. Clearly saving move for Colorado. I like Charlie Coyle for Columbus. I think it's a good fit for them. Colorado also gets a prospect in Gavin Brindley. Brindley's only played 20 games. Most of them were in Cleveland, which is the Columbus affiliate. He got 17 points those 52 games. Coyle is 33. He's got a year left at 5.25. He had 35 points in 83 games. A good two-way player. Wood is all speed. The skill hasn't always been there. He's got 4 years left at 2.5. But it gives Columbus another little bit of push, and it freed up some money for Colorado. They were trying to free up money for a certain player. Unfortunately, they didn't go their way. But so now they got cap space.
Gavinov went to the Devils.
Gavinov. Oh, okay. That's a kind of
Dallas is just freaking cap.
Yeah. Any thoughts on Charlie Coyle going to Columbus? Anyone want to add on to?
I mean, that's like you said, they moved that salary away, and he'll be there next year and the year after. Does it help Columbus? I don't know.
Right. No, I think it'll help them a little bit, but not sure. This was the big one for Montreal. We talked about the Islanders adding in 2 first-round picks when we did the draft stuff. These were the picks that they added because Montreal got Noah Dobson from the New York Islanders, a solid D. And this is probably the one position that I think Montreal really needed, help in. They made the playoffs this year. I think Montreal is one of those up-and-coming teams. They immediately signed him to an 8-year, $9.5 million D, so he got paid. He is a big, strong D. This was exactly a need for Montreal. I think this was a good move for them, and it definitely speeds up that window for them to contend with the Torontos and the Floridas in that division for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone's in agreement. Good. I like this.
Yeah.
Then
See, that was a big. I saw this one as the big one. The goalie swap. Those are great.
Yet another head scratcher of what the hell Anaheim is doing. Detroit gets John Gibson for Josh Gibson. What did I put John in here? Some Gibson, the Gibson guy for Anaheim for Peter Mrazek and picks. Poor Sarah, her first favorite goalie was a good old Peter Mrazek in Carolina, and since then this guy's been traded to you. He went to us. He went from Detroit to us, or no, Philly to us, and then he went to Chicago, then to Detroit, and now he's out in Anaheim. So. Anaheim's got the kid that they really like. Who got his notes here? It was Lucas Dostal, who is only 23. He went 23, 23, and 7 with a 3.29, but they think he's the guy. So clearly this frees up the spot for him. Gibson was 11, 11, and 2 with a 2.89 on what I thought was a really bad Anaheim team. Peter was okay, 12, 21, and 2 with a 3.35. But on a really, really bad Chicago team. When he got to Detroit, he actually, I think, was, his numbers improved tremendously. So we'll see. I don't know if it's a great deal, bad deal, but it's an interesting deal for sure.
Gotta love the goalie swaps. Those are always fun.
Yes, goalie swaps,
especially when they're known goalies.
Yeah, exactly, and that doesn't happen that often. This one again, another smaller on the other side, but it does involve the Caps. And I know we got some Caps fans out there, so I did want to cover it. Washington trades Chase Prisky and a 4th to Minnesota for Declan Chisholm and a 6th. These guys are both young. Prisky played mostly in Hershey last year. Chisholm did play in Minnesota. He's a D, so he got 12 points, which was a season high for him, which was a high for him. But again, both of these guys are pretty young. I think it puts Chisholm should be on that bottom pair of 5, 6 would be where I imagine where he's going to fit in on the Washington D. Prisky really he hasn't had much of a shot in Washington, so you get a D for a guy that may or may not have made the top 12 anyway. I think it's an okay move, but for Washington, but nothing crazy.
Hurricanes signed Mike Riley from the Islanders. I don't know who that is, but we got a guy.
Yeah,
I think Chisholm got. I think when he was another one that got re-signed. I mean, that's of course they need to get those younger players in there,
right?
With Hershey and because the guys keep graduating up to the the big leagues, so that's good. This is how you replenish when you can't always do the drafts. And so I think Chisholm did restructure and re-sign or something like that.
Yeah, he did.
Okay.
Yeah, he's locked into for you guys, so that's good.
Yeah. So those are good when you're making those moves and then you sign them. I like that. That's not to say I'm a big McClellan fan. I'm not, but it's the Patricks that take over. Like the entire Dick Patrick family runs the Caps now.
You usually see that anyway with the restricted free agent moves anyway, where it's if you trade for a restricted free agent, you've usually gotten the okay to talk to the agent. Where normally you're going to get that deal done because or else you wouldn't make the trade for him. So usually that team's allowed you to speak with the agent and have that contact with them to know that you're going to be able to get a deal done. And this was another one of those type of deals. Nashville, and this kind of helped Vegas for a later deal. They traded out one of their restricted free agents, Nicholas Hague, to Nashville for Colton Sissons and Jeremy Lizotte and a 3rd round pick. The big part of this one was, Hague was restricted free agent. Good ad for Nashville, which needed some size. Tough luck for Colton, who was the longest tenured Predator, and now now he goes out to Vegas, but he does get to play with somebody that we'll get to here in a little bit. So this was all about moving money around for Vegas to be able to do something that they did late last night. And then a little other one, Minnesota gets Tarasenko for the good old future considerations from Detroit. 33 points in Detroit last year for the 33-year-old. He kind of had a down year for Detroit. Minnesota seems to think that they're going to be able to rejuvenate him. I don't know how or what. I don't really know what Tarasenko has left in the tank, but that was a move. We'll call it that.
Well, he was a heck of a player in his prime.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
Prime for Tarasenko, great move. This Tarasenko, I don't know. It's kind of just whatever it is, right?
It's probably one of those. Hey, if it works out, it works out. It's future consideration.
Right. Yeah, it's good. The good for you. We wish future considerations luck in Detroit. Hopefully they'll do okay.
Yeah.
So now this is just kind of recap some of the names that had already re-signed with their teams. It was Brock. So we've already kind of went over these ones in our last show. The guys that had re-signed before free agency hit. Then we had some other big ones. Toronto kept John Tavares. He got 4 years, $4.38 million. That one kind of came in right where we thought that his projections were going to be at. He was supposed to get 2 years at $4 million, so he got 4 years to stay in Toronto, so he gets that term. Then one of the big boys for Florida the first one to come off the board was Sam Bennett. He stays in Florida 8 years and $8 million a year. Probably would have gotten anywhere, from 10 to 11 million on the open market, but he said he was going to stay in Florida, and he did. So good for him. Then Dante Fabro stays in Columbus. That one was a 4-year, $4.1 million. Claude Giroux kind of surprised me with staying in Ottawa for 1 year and $2 million. Alexander Romanov was the restricted free agent. He signed his deal with the Islanders for 8 years, $6.25. Jamie Benn signed a very team-friendly deal to stay in Dallas at 1 year, $1 million. And then we had some restricted free agents. Kevin Ball in Calgary for 6 years, $6 million. Morgan Geekie in Boston for 6 years, 5.5. Haig then signed his deal in Nashville for 4 years and 5.5. Matthew Knies in Toronto, 6 years, 7.75. And I think that one was it as far as there. Yeah, so those were theirs. Any one of those ones that you guys want to touch on?
Morgan Geeky, former Kane, getting a good paycheck now.
He did. Morgan Geekie did get paid 6 years, $5.5 million. Good for him, which I always liked him in Carolina. Then he went out to Seattle and then to Boston. So good for him.
Squad.
What was that?
The Geek Squad.
Yes.
The
Geek Squad.
Exactly. The two that stand out to me are Tavares and Bennett, simply because of the years. 8 years, $8 million for Bennett. He could have got. It would have been these. I think they're all looking for a little longer tenure, or at least the contracts. They're trying to spread out the money a little longer. So I mean, he could have done 6 years at 12 to 13 million a year, but he did 8 at 8. Okay,
Yep.
That makes sense, and it's that's good for the team and that's good for the player. Gives him 8 years there per se. And the thing with Tavares too, I saw him doing a 2 to 3 year contract and thinking he'd get like 6 million. Okay, 4 and 4.2, 4.3. That works out well.
And he's older, so to get 4 years
mhm.
and to get that locked in, hey, I got no problem with any of those deals.
Yeah, ask Brad Marchand. He got 6 years.
Right.
At 37.
Well, we'll get to Brad. Yeah, that's for sure. So yeah, so these were all the ones, and this was right before like what would have been our airtime. And then, I forgot the Evan Bouchard in Edmonton. He was a restricted free agent. He got really paid 4 years, 10.5 million. That one just happened kind of too. Then this is what I call at the 5 p.m. yesterday, the shit really hit the fan part of the signings. Because first you had Aaron Ekblad decide to stay in Florida for 8 years at only 6 million, which if he would have hit the open market, probably would have gotten 8 to 10 million for sure. Brad Marchand signs to stay in Florida for 6 years and 5.25 million. And yes, that is 37-year-old Brad Marchand signing a 6-year deal for 5.25 million. Then Ivan Provorov decides to stay in Columbus for 7 years and gets 8.5 million. So definitely an overpay for Columbus, which they had to do to keep a guy like that. But that's okay. So then we get the big trade. Toronto trades the rights to Mitch Marner to Vegas for Nicholas Roy. And I like the pickup for Toronto. You get something, and they actually get a decent player with Roy. Let me pull up his stats here because I had him here somewhere. Where was he at? 28-year-old solid two-way. He had 31 points for Vegas. So, he's one of those third, fourth line guys, kills penalties. So you get something for Marner. And then, of course, Marner goes and signs the 8-year, $12 million deal to play in Vegas. And you're thinking, well, Vegas is going to have to make a move. But then they got the unfortunate news of Alex Pietrangelo basically was going to need to have a hip leg surgery, and there was no guarantee that that was even going to work. So he just retires from hockey, which, oh, what do you know, frees up all this money for Vegas to be able to do this just conveniently on the same day. So
Still tampering.
no, never, not in the NHL, Vic. That doesn't happen. Come on. So anyway, so that's the big deal. So guys, any thoughts on Marner to Vegas?
We got Brad Marchand Yager up there. He's going to be Yager soon, playing at age 42.
Right. Yeah. The Marchand deal. I mean, hey, good for him. You get 6 years, 5.2. And look, you know, we're all talking about the big three for Florida and who would leave, and the answer is none of them. So again, if Bill Zito doesn't win, now that said, Florida's got to make moves because they have only 18 players currently under contract. They only have one goalie under contract, and they are now at the cap. So they've got to make moves to get guys signed. I think Ivan Rodriguez is probably going to be an odd man out. They're probably going to have to move a couple other folks too. They did make some small signings today, but they're going to still have to make some maneuvering just to get back under the cap at some point in time before the
again. Remember the last time we saw that the Panthers did get a backup goalie, so they got that guy in place. And again, you look at those numbers though, 8 years and only $6 million, not bad.
Yeah.
I mean, Brad Marchand 6 years, but you know he could have done like 3 years and $8 or $9 million a year because he would have gotten that. And then real quick, the Marchand thing is everyone keeps getting on the Boston Bruins case for trading him. Like they weren't going to re-sign him.
No.
And he wasn't going to stay there. So they got something for him.
Right.
And okay, Marchand goes and wins the whole thing, and you know he probably could have been the Conn Smythe Trophy winner, but that's fine. The Bruins should be happy about that, and they moved on because it could have been one of those many deals where they kept him, and then they don't re-sign him and they get nothing.
Yeah, I agree. I don't.
So Don Sweeney, he's taking a lot of crap, but that worked out for them.
Yep. Yeah, I don't disagree with any of that. I think it's all good stuff. You know, the Columbus signing is a little interesting for me too because I think they really did overpay him, but that's how you're going to keep a guy in Columbus. You're not keeping him if you don't overpay him a little bit, and they definitely have the cap space to do it. So we'll see if they regret that in a couple of years. But I think overall, you know, I don't mind the moves that Columbus made. And look, Vegas this is what Vegas does at this point in time, right? It's just I don't think we should be surprised anymore that Vegas somehow finds a way to get the guy that they want on the roster because they always seem to be able to do it.
And now Marner can go out and not have to worry about the Toronto fan base anymore. Like if he was, I mean, you're a player, you shouldn't, but it does affect you. But now he can just go to Vegas and he can be with a bunch of guys, and there's no pressure. I mean, they won the cup a few years ago, whatever.
Yep. So we'll see how that all plays out. You know, I think too, you know, what's all going to come down to for Marner is can he win a playoff series in Vegas, right? If he does,
I bet he will.
Yeah. If he does, then it's fine. Then it's just like when Jack Eichel went out there and then all of a sudden Jack Eichel learned how to win. You know, he got away from Buffalo and he learned how to win. I think the same thing will kind of happen for Marner too with that. But it will be definitely interesting to see. Then there was one other deal, Patrick Kane. This one kind of also surprised me. He decides to stay in Detroit. I don't know if Detroit is really his best chance to get back into the playoffs, but he's back there for 1 year, $3 million. You know, same deal that he signed with last year there. And then earlier this morning, Carolina extended Logan Stankoven, who was part of the whole Moose trade, came in, fit right into Rod's system. He's only 22. They get him signed for 8 years, $6 million. He's a smaller player, but he is feisty. He is the exact kind of player too that this team needs. So I was very happy to see Carolina get that extension done today.
Dank.
Exactly. Oh, we do have a comment over here. So let me pull this up here real quick. Brian says, I think that is a
wave.
That's a wave. Thank you. See, I need my emoji person here. So Brian is waving to us. So there you go. Thank you for that. Good thing I have you here to help me out with the emojis. So, all right. So there we go. So that was what that was going into today, right? And that's just getting into today. So going into 12 noon, this was the list of players that was the top. And look, I know it's not much that was left, but this was the top players that were available, or at least looked like we're going to be available going into today of what was left. The big one out there was Ehlers, and most of these guys have since gone. So let's just go right ahead and get into that. So who's gone since then? I'm just going to hit these real quick. Jake Allen goalie decides to re-sign in New Jersey, gets 5 years, $1.8 million. I think he probably got more on the market, but he's 34 and gets a 5-year deal. So I think he went for longevity over anything else. Probably the big surprise to me of this list is Brock Besser staying in Vancouver for 7 years, 7.25. I thought for sure he was going to leave Vancouver, but he decides to stay. Christian Dvorak gets a 1-year deal, $5.4 million from Philly to leave Montreal. He had 33 points last year. Corey Perry goes to LA on a 1-year deal, so we know what that means, right?
Mm-hmm.
LA's
He's going to lose the Stanley Cup.
Yeah, did you see the defenseman they signed? I don't think it's going to happen.
No, probably not, because they're going old school in LA. But hey, so if this thing holds true there, we'll see. Dan Vladar, goaltender, leaves Calgary for Philly at 3.35. Another good move, I think, for the Canes. They locked in one. Oops, I forgot. I don't know why that's ringing. Hold on, let me get rid of that. They lock in one of their free agents, Martin. How do you pronounce his last name? Scooter, I know you'll know it.
Faravari, and that's a really good. The last time I said I was talking about the RFAs that were coming up. I think 2 times ago we were on with the Caps, and Faravari was one of those. These are one of the RFAs that got to get done, and they'll probably get that one done. And when he went down with the foot injury, that really hurt the Capitals in the playoffs. Once he was when he couldn't play, that was it. Like they weren't the same team.
Yeah, I agree, and I do like the move. 7 years, $6 million. He was really solid with them, and it would have been interesting. It might have been a much different playoff series if he was available against the Canes for sure. So
would have helped anyways. Would have helped.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely agree. So it's a good signing for Washington. I like it, and it does take up some of the cap space that they have, but that's a deal they had to get done. You had to get him re-signed. Gavrikov leaves LA to no shocker the Rangers. When the Rangers started freeing up all this cap space, it was pretty much rumored that that's where he was going to go, and that's exactly where he went. So they get a D. They kind of overpay for him maybe a little bit. Connor Brown leaves Edmonton, which for New Jersey. That one kind of surprised me a little bit too. For 4 years, $3 million. But we'll see how that goes too. So, any thoughts on any of these ones here that we have?
I actually like the Gavrikov move for the Rangers, unfortunately, because he'll play with Fox and there. So Gavrikov's more a stay-at-home guy when Fox goes on the rush. I think they might do well together.
Yeah, I kind of agree, but I hope it goes wrong just because it's the Rangers.
Yeah,
I like when the Rangers go wrong.
Me too.
That was a good pickup for the Rangers. Gavrikov's good D. Good D.
He is. But that's another one of those deals, 7-7. That's a lot of money for a defenseman. But we'll see how it goes.
Sometimes you got to pay money.
In, giving us some props, saying great show. Sideline Junkies Podcast Network rocks. Yeah, I agree. We do.
Thanks, Jack.
So that's part one of what happened since noon today. Then we get into here. Part 2. These were some more interesting signings. You got Tanner Jeannot going to Boston, 5 years, 3.4, leaves LA, getting a 5-year deal. Good for him. Lion Lindgren, the D that was with Colorado, goes to Seattle. Again, a little surprised that he's going to Seattle, but he gets $4.5 million there. There was another trade. Boston gets Victor Arvidsson from Edmonton for a 5th rounder. This is all about Edmonton trying to free up cap space because they have one Connor McDavid who is going to be a free agent next year. This is all about trying to get some cap relief for there. I don't know if Boston's already got Arvidsson signed yet, but might be getting close to that. Then there was a nice little trade of young players against St. Louis. Trade Zach Bolduc, who was 4th in rookie scoring, for Logan Malou for Montreal. St. Louis gets a D, and this was an extra spot for Montreal because they just added, of course, the guy from the Islanders. So they're both young players. One's 23, one's 22. You got 8 NHL games in for one of them. The other one hasn't even played in the league yet, but I think it is interesting. A nice little interesting deal for St. Louis to get a little bit better. And I know sometimes Chip chimes in on here, so that's why I threw it in there just for Chip. Brandon Tanev goes to Utah, 3 years, $2.5 million. Antoine Forsberg leaves Ottawa to go be the backup goalie in LA because their guy, left as well. So 2 year, 2.25. Brian Dumoulin, another D, goes out to LA. So this is where we're talking about with the Corey Perry and some of these older players going out to LA. Whether or not Dumoulin's going to be a good replacement at D, probably not, but he gets $4 million. Jonathan Drouin goes to the Islanders, 2 years, $2 million, leaves Colorado. He was injured a lot last year. This one kind of happened just before we went live on the show. Mikael Granlund signs with Anaheim for a 3-year deal, $7 million, so he gets his paycheck. definitely comes in over on that one. And then Lars Eller does leave Washington for Ottawa on a 1-year, $2.5 million deal. All right, so there's a lot there, guys. Is there any of those that any of you want to hit on?
Didn't Cody Ceci go to LA too? That's the one I was talking about that was really bad.
Yes, he did.
Yeah. I don't know what they're doing.
Rebuilding.
Yeah, it's hard to figure out. LA's going for old. I mean, because these guys are all 33, 34. So I wouldn't necessarily call it rebuilding. I don't know if it's they're trying to do one last run with, because you got Doherty and stuff like that. So is this one last run that they're trying to do with the core that they have and you get Corey Perry. So in theory, that means you're guaranteed to go to the Stanley Cup Finals. So maybe that's it. Maybe this is their shot at the one last run.
They probably won't even make the playoffs. They're so old.
Yeah, I mean, the West is very interesting. I think the East, where I think some of the better teams were maybe in the West this year. I think we're seeing now. Look, remember last year, July 1st, we were talking about the Nashville Predators looking like the team to beat because they added Steven Stamkos, they added Brady Shea, and then what's the guy they added from Vegas? Now I can't. Yeah, Marchessault. And they didn't make the playoffs, right? So just because you have a good day on July 1st does not guarantee anything in the NHL. And we'll have to see how everything plays out because there's still some stuff that's going to happen. Like Florida's going to have to make moves. There's still the big guy, I think, is still out there too. And we'll get to that on the next page. But we'll see where all these guys all kind of shake out before we decide who on paper at least looks like they can be making a run for next year. I think Montreal's definitely improved. I think that would be a team that to me I'd be watching out for. But it's interesting, like, in years past, you'd always see Pittsburgh in here and you don't see Pittsburgh going out and getting anybody. And that's kind of still weird to me to not see Pittsburgh signing some big name player.
Is this a big name player?
No, that would not be a big name player. So. And then, so anyone else got anything on this? I mean, Granlund got a lot of money in Anaheim. I think, what was he projected at? He was projected at, I went too far there. He was projected at, 2 years, 4.9, and he gets 3 years, 7 from Anaheim. That's just crazy for what was the third, probably would be a second line center, I guess, but he definitely gets his paycheck for sure. So who does that leave out there? Well, that leaves Ehlers is still the big guy out there now. His agent said today for some reason he was going to wait a day or two. That seems to still be the case. The teams that have been linked are Carolina, Washington, and Tampa. Those are the three names that have come down to that are supposedly in for him. They all have the cap space if they wanted to make the move. His projections are 6 years, around $8 million a year. Says he wants to go to a warm weather city that's in contention. All three of those teams made the playoffs. So
Washington isn't warm.
Yeah. So, any thought? What do you think, Scott, from the Washington side? Would you be hopeful of getting Ehlers in a Caps jersey?
Yeah, I mean, of course, it all depends on, of course, the costs and the money and everything like that. But yeah, you can make it work. They can get them.
All right.
I'd be in.
We do have some breaking news. Give us a second here. It does sound like it's getting closer, and this is number 4 that was down on here of of a Miller going to Carolina, which we talked about that the Rangers were going to have to be freeing up some money. So it looks like he is going to be going to Carolina. It was just trying to work it out. Elliot Friedman, which if you're watching the show and you want to know who do you trust on Twitter for breaking NHL moves like this, it's Elliot Friedman and Pierre LeBrun, and that's about it. Kevin Weeks too. You can get Kevin Weeks
Bob McKenzie, but
but McKenzie's retired. So if it's from anybody else, unless you see Friedman or Pierre reporting it, it might not be true. But it says here this will be a sign and trade between the Rangers and Hurricanes. It is projected that the Miller's contract will come in at 8 years, $60 million. We do not yet know what Carolina is sending back, but the earlier one was that they were basically going. It's originally because Miller was a restricted free agent, is going to be like whatever they could have gotten from an offer sheet is basically what they're going to get. The Canes do have 2 first-round picks.
Well, we just got Mike Riley, so.
And the Canes did add Mike Riley, another D, which probably leads me to believe that number 2 on this list, Brett Burns, is definitely not coming back to Carolina. And what's weird with Burns is I've not really seen any names of anyone that is interested. I know he had talked about really wanting to go back to Carolina, but I think when you add Riley and now you're going to be adding Miller, kind of says to me Brett Burns is not going to be playing for the Carolina Hurricanes next year.
I think Riley is probably more the 7th, 8th, 5th, kind of like how Ty Smith was last year.
8
Yeah.
years,
I
7.5.
I think Burns is probably more a possibility. I'm hoping not, but I think he's still a possibility around.
Well, it makes me wonder too if Morrow might be part of this trade to the Rangers, because if you're signing another D, and you already got Nichushkin in the loop and you already got the other 5 guys, I think it kind of might mean that Morrow might be part of this deal, but we're waiting to see what the return is. What was it? It's officially 8 years, 7.75? What you saw?
7.5.
7.5. 8 years, 7.5 is allegedly the contract that's been signed by Carolina for Keandre Miller. This is exactly what the Canes need. If I can the Canes needed somebody with some size. He can play D. He's a little susceptible to breakaways, but he's also feisty. He is not afraid to throw a punch. This is, I wanted the Canes to add some size and added some grit, and this does this. And I have a funny feeling that Keandre jerseys are going to be selling off the hooks in Raleigh. It won't take long. I think he's going to be a fan favorite very quickly between him and Stan Coven.
He wasn't a fan favorite in New York, I can tell you that.
Well,
Ranger
no,
fans,
Fans are dumb. So
Ranger fans weren't a big fan of him for whatever reason. I don't keep track of, but I do have a lot of Ranger fans.
I saw a lot of Ranger fans that were saying that the Rangers should also get in the return Martin Necas, who isn't even on the Canes roster anymore. And they also were talking about Jack Drury as being part of the trade. He's no longer on the Canes roster anymore. So, that just
like
says
I
what
said,
we need
they're
to know
dumb,
about
so.
Ranger fans. Right.
They
Exactly.
just like the last name Drury.
Yeah, exactly. So, but it's not that one. So we'll see. And like I said, the biggest names. These aren't really terribly big names. You got your other capital players still out there. Andrew Majapani, who the Caps signed late last year, had a good playoff run, I thought, with them, but I've not really seen anything about them trying to get him back. I've heard Edmonton, San Jose, and Toronto are rumors for him. But we'll see how that all plays out. Have you heard anything, Scooter, for anyone for your Caps?
I haven't heard anything, but he is a player that would be good for them to bring back. Maybe another 1 or 2 year deal, something like that. But
yeah, unless he gets overpaid by somebody else. And then the other one,
did you take the money?
Yeah, exactly.
So the Miller trade kind of reminds me of the Brady Shea trade. The Rangers fans hated him too. And look what he did for us.
And then he had 4 very good years for us here in Carolina. So I hope that one. The other big, is this center Pius Sutter, who played for Vancouver. The big rumor seems like it's going to be Calgary. I don't know if they're going to get that finalized yet today or not, but that seems to be the lead team there for that. And of course, we just talked about Alisson Dalkovich getting traded from Pittsburgh to San Jose. So that was the other big one. I'm going to take a quick little look through Pierre's mentions just to see before we get ready to wrap it up if there's anything out here at all on anyone else of any big news or not. So if you guys got anything you want to cover while I look, you guys go ahead and hit something.
Well, we lost one, so we'll remember you. We'll remember you.
Which one?
You want. Oh, there he is. He's back.
Oh, there.
Oh, what's that?
Oh, that was beautiful. That looked like a picture of UConn.
Let's see. I pulled up. This is the TSN website that I pulled up here. I'm just looking to see if there's any Ryan McLeod, which the
Conference
Buffalo.
USA welcomes University of Delaware.
They did.
Yeah, there's that.
Oh, there you go. Well, and the MAC brought in UMass, so they're
Did
really
they?
adding that. Yeah.
Did they bring Dr. J with them?
No Dr. J, unfortunately. But it just will be another football team for Kent State to lose to, so it's all good. Let's see. Dadnoff, we talked about to New Jersey, 1 year, $1 million. Let's see. Vanacek, who was the backup goaltender for Florida, goes to Utah.
Oh, okay.
1 year, $1.5 million. Let's see here. That's really
Jacob Magna.
That's really it as far as the bigger name folks go. I mean, since Granlund. So yeah, so nothing late here looks like has broke, which is good. So I think that's looks like about it there. So let's just then let me check here one more time for him. So who you guys have? Who do you think is a team that has gotten better between the free agency and stuff? Vic, who's your team to watch after the moves?
Who's gotten better? Oh boy. I have to think about that one. I really thought about that one.
I know I threw you on the spot. Scott, you got anyone for who's
I don't know
today?
if I think it's a little early because they're not the biggest names out there to say who got better, but I will say that Florida stayed the same.
Yeah,
And that's not good for the rest of the league.
Yep. Yeah, and I think that's look. We talked like when we were going into this free agent class that it wasn't the greatest of free agency classes to begin with, and with the cap space, so many guys were able to keep their own names. It really meant that there wasn't going to be a lot, of movement today. And then the biggest guy that's out there comes out and says, "I'm not signing today," So, and I think that puts kind of a lot of teams on hold because you're going to need $7 or $8 million if you're one of these teams that have hopes on getting Ellers. So you're kind of in a wait and see where he goes to then know if you got other money for these other guys out there or not. So my guess is going to be once that big piece falls, I think some of these other little ones will fall, and then that'll be it. Because then this is where then usually we got this week, and then once you get to about July 4th on, the NHL seems to take its month break from any real big news hitting. Everyone goes to the beaches and leaves the Canadian cities at that point in time.
I think one team that may have gotten better was Vegas, just because I think they'll get themselves back in the mix again with Marner. That was a big deal.
Yeah, I agree. Who left what?
Vegas, the Alex Petryong.
Oh yeah, because he got hurt with the retirement. So yeah, he's going to be Vegas's captain.
Yeah.
Do you go with Marner?
No, it's too soon.
Probably. I don't know. Maybe not. Yeah, I don't know. I go with Marner as the captain either. So.
He's on their roster.
All right. So with that, we're not going to do a show next Monday either because we're going to Cedar Point on Monday. So we'll bring back our Cedar Point report cards. We can do best amusement park rides. That'll be a fun one because we're now hitting into that. So
Big Bad Wolf at Busch Gardens.
Yeah, that is a good one. I do like. That's probably one. What's that other one at Busch Gardens that I like?
Alpengeist. There's Alpengeist also.
No, Alpengeist does not agree with my head anymore at my age.
Yeah, that probably wasn't with mine either.
It's a Griffin. I think it's the one that's like Val Raven here that you hang for a little bit and then you go down. Mm-hmm. That one was a good one. There's another good one too, but I can't remember. Oh yeah, Dmitry Orlov still hasn't signed yet. He's not signed yet either.
Yeah, Orlov hasn't.
Also rumored to go to Carolina.
Who? Yeah, but I don't think that's happening now. I will now because somehow they're able to get the money in for everybody there. So no show on Monday. We'll be back on Tuesday after that, and then. Let's see here. Then, of course, just want to go over all the other great shows that we have on here. Tuesday Night Flight, that will be on this week. Passenger Seat with Gentleman Jack is going to be off this week. Thursday Night Throwdown is going to be on. WrestleManiacs on Saturday is off. Sunday Morning Rise should be on, but they're not sure yet. And then the Pretenders coach with Devon, which if you missed that yesterday, is another good show. He does a really good job with the high school side of things. Brought in some, a coach, and then he brings in a player too to kind of get their perspective. So it's a unique show, and in that you're not going to hear a lot of talk of the professional side, but it's a great show if you want to hear more about what's going on at the local youth level of sports, which I think is definitely an important part. Being that I officiate ice hockey, I think that's warm and near to my heart too. So, guys, anything you want to add?
Yep. Delaware Park, they have July 4th. They'll have exotic animal racing. So you got zebras, ostriches, and camels going at it. So I'm really looking forward to that one.
You
put money down and bet.
How do you come up with the odds on zebra racing? That's what I want to
know.
No
idea. You just look at the best one. You go, hey, I like that one's stripes.
Hey, I mean, it's kind of what we did with our pig racing at the state
fair. That's
fair.
True. There was pig racing at the North Carolina State Fair, but he retired. He retired with his pigs, unfortunately. So we don't get that anymore. So, but all right. Well, when is that again?
That's on July 4th.
July 4th.
Yeah, just
So
coming
the
up.
next show, then we need the update on how the betting went.
I will give you the updates on the exotic animal racing.
Ben asked if Scott mentioned Hartford,
I
and
think
so
once. I think.
I never
yeah,
did. You did in the beginning.
correct.
But I did mention
brought
the
up
Hartford Civic
yeah,
Center.
yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
Good
we
job,
brought up
Scott.
Hartford
Proud
because
of you,
we have
Scott.
the Zamboni that we brought, but Scott himself did not mention Hartford, so therefore it does not count on the Hartford ticker today. So today's final Scooters Hartford ticker count would be 0 because we're the only ones that brought up Hartford.
That's right. However, I could have brought up Hartford that you mentioned University of Massachusetts because they had a specific basketball player that's from Hartford up there. But we'll go in a different direction from that.
Okay.
I don't know. I think that could maybe count as officially bringing up Hartford, or we'd have to change that ticker
Yeah.
to 1 now. But I guess we'll let that go. So since it was still kind of brought on by Scott talking or by Ben talking about it. I mean, so since Ben brought it on,
yeah.
I guess it wasn't you just bringing up Hartford on your own for it to count on the ticker. So therefore we'll leave the ticker today at 0 to end the show then. So you'll do better next time, I'm sure.
I'll do my best.
All right, guys. So you got anything?
No, the draft, Matty Schaefer. You saw how he kissed the jersey for his mom because he lost his mom.
Yes. Do we talk? Oh, and then was it?
And then Columbus had
McQueen's guy, which was drafted by Anaheim. He's going to be number 95 for Lightning McQueen, which I thought was kind of funny.
Start your engine.
Dorky, but funny and cute all at the same time. We like that. So all good stuff. Vic, how you doing, buddy? You doing okay?
Yep, just that's why I got these things on migraine. So I'm seeing if this helps any and see if I can come on more. So we'll see.
Good. Well, it's good having you back. Scott, appreciate you being on here as always. So as I always say, make sure you hug your loved ones, tell them that you love them, because tomorrow's not guaranteed. But if you are here, hopefully you'll join in one of our great shows. And of course, the guys will be on later tonight, I guess, because it's Tuesday. So they should be on here about 8 o'clock with the Tuesday night show. There was a big NBA trade, which, to be honest, I'm not the NBA guy. So we'll let them cover that trade. I'm sure they'll break that one down for sure. What's this here? Oh, Alex DeVecchio passed away from Detroit Red Wings.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, he was old.
Yeah, that's an old school player right there.
Oh, by the way, the basketball player at University of Massachusetts was the great Marcus Camby.
Okay, well, yeah.
So he was a Hartford guy.
Marcus Camby, I do remember that. He was a good player for them.
Yeah, he would drive around at the University of Hartford when they weren't playing. He would go to the basketball games down there, and he was driving in like a $45,000 Range Rover at the age of 20 years old. Wasn't drafted yet, still playing at UMass. And then they went to the championship, and then I think Rick Pitino was their coach. Was it Rick Pitino? Or
maybe
it was the other guy from Kentucky. John Calipari.
Calipari, yeah, that's right. Yeah, Calipari was there.
So they threw the entire Final Four out for UMass because all the players were paid.
And now I think that officially counts now as 1 because you've then brought them up again on your own. So now it does count on the official Hartford ticker count. So yeah, I think now it officially counts. So there you go. Yeah, and let's see here what one more comment. Yeah. Oh yeah, Ben had your back with the Calipari. He was right there with us. So yeah. So all right, guys, there we go. That's our show for today. We'll end there before we get really going crazy. So hey, we actually finished somewhat on time today. I was hoping to be done at least before 6 because we got a show tonight to go catch. So I'm happy to stay on time for once. So look at that, we did it. So anyway, that's it for us. We'll see you guys next week. We'll finalize the last little bit of moves here for whoever didn't get signed today or traded today. But we broke down we had 2 trades while we were on, and we had 1 signing. So that's pretty good while we're live.
Not bad.
Take care, everybody.
See you, everybody. Take care.